Hello everyone, this is Shannon from That's So Po, and today I'm doing week 11 of my 2022 reads. This week I read a bunch of very different things, lots of them really short, and all of them were okay to good. So I enjoyed them, but nothing really that I fell in love with and nothing that I really disliked. Timestamps and content warnings are in the description box below. First, I finished A Woman of No Importance by Sonia Purnell. This is a nonfiction biography about Virginia Hall, who was a kind of spy during World War II, really helping set up the French resistance. This is a book that was really popular a couple of years ago, and a good friend of mine gave it to me for Christmas because he'd read about it being a really popular book and it sounded like the thing I would like, and I just got to it now. But it was a very enjoyable read. So this is really the story of Virginia Hall. It kind of does a little bit at the beginning about her childhood and growing up to her young adulthood, and a little bit at the end about her kind of middle age and older years, but the vast majority of this book is just centered on World War II and the work that she did for the French resistance. So Virginia Hall was somebody who grew up kind of upper class in the US, but was really interested in adventure and in going abroad. She wanted to be like an ambassador, things like that, but in the 30s when she was trying to do that, it was just not open for women. And then especially when she had a hunting accident and lost part of one of her legs, they just were like, you're a woman and you are somebody who's got a disability, you've got an amputated leg, we're not sure that you're going to be part of the ambassadorial service. And so she wasn't really sure what to do, but she loved Europe, and she ended up volunteering to help out with driving ambulances, and then later with the kind of British Secret Service type of thing that was trying to get people set up in France to be part of the resistance. And she turned out to be an incredible organizer and all these sorts of things. So this is all of that story of what the work she did during the resistance was. And it was like really gripping. The book was really well written, and just Virginia Hall's story is just really intense. It's wartime, they're doing spy stuff, and she was a really cool person. The story though does go into some pretty graphic detail about torture. A lot of the spies were caught and tortured by the Nazis, and it was pretty gruesome what they did to them, and it was gone in quite a bit detail in this, so that was not a thing that I liked. And there were shades in this narrative of ableism, this story of Virginia Hall pushing past her endurance, even to the point where her leg would be bloody from the way that it rubbed against her false leg, never letting on that she even had a false leg to many, many different people. I didn't necessarily love that style of the narrative where it pushed that messaging. And then the other part that I thought was a little bit weird messaging wise was it has this sort of chosen one trope, which normally, like I'm used to in fantasy, but here, it sort of portrays Virginia Hall as incredibly competent, which it sounds like she was, but sort of to the extent that nobody else did anything. And obviously this is a book centering on her, so that kind of makes sense, but I just feel like it would have been nice to really focus a little bit more on the work that the resistance as a whole was doing, not just say if Virginia Hall hadn't been there, the resistance wouldn't exist type of thing. So those are just like some small quibbles, but overall I thought that this was a really gripping read, and I can totally see why this was so popular when it came out. I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. Next, I read Sweet on the Greek by Talia Hibbert, which is another of their backlist books that I'm trying to kind of work my way through. And this one is interesting because I can see elements of some of their more recent rom-com works in this, but it still has a little bit more of that angsty feel of some of their other back works. So this story is about a woman who has a little bit of some trauma to get over. She's been in some pretty bad relationships, and she's decided to swear off relationships, but she ends up meeting this Greek guy who is just retired from football, from soccer, and he decides to pay her to be his fake girlfriend to kind of keep all of the other women out of his life so that he can focus on what he wants to do next in life. But really, it's also kind of just an excuse for him to get close to the heroine because he kind of has a crush on her. And they go away for a weekend with a bunch of his football buddies and grow closer. So this has really cute dynamic between the two characters, lots of cute banter. The hero is such cinnamon roll, so I see a lot of those things about it that pop up in some of the other stories that I've read in her rom-coms. So lots of like funny and cute parts. However, it does veer into a little bit of the erotica side of things at times. This has quite a lot of very graphic sex in it, which I mean is okay, but it definitely veers more towards that erotica side. And the third act breakup for me was a little bit over the top. I think that it would have made total sense to have like a small sort of decision to like, hey, we need to think about things rather than this kind of big blow up. But in any case, I still really love Talia Hibbert's writing. The characters are great. It was a lot of fun to read, so I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. Then Sush read a couple of SFF magazines out loud to me, starting with Future Science Fiction Digest number 12. And this is just a collection of some short stories from countries and people all over the world, some of them translated, and it's nice to read more translated SFF. That's definitely something that I'm looking for more of. So Sush had gotten me this magazine issue and then read me the stories in it, which is always fun. Most of the stories were not my style though. However, one of them was so my style. It was so good, which is The Life Cycle of a Cyber Bar by Arthur Liu, translated from, I believe, Chinese by Nathan Faris. And this was just the kind of funny sci-fi that I like. It's a little bit surreal, kind of ridiculous and absurd, and it just takes this premise of a guy walks into a bar, but then stretches it to every step past that in such a fascinating way and twists it in ways that I never would have thought of. And so it has all of these little mini sections in it, and each one I'd almost laugh out loud because it was such a surprise and so ingenious the way that it happened. So for this story alone, I think that this magazine issue is totally worth reading, although overall for the issue I gave it 3 out of 5 stars. Then the other SFF magazine issue that Sush read out loud to me was Eita issue number 1, which is a Brazilian translated SFF magazine, but it seems to really focus on flash fiction. Some of the stories in this were really short, and the collection as a whole was actually quite short. So it was actually really fun and quick to read. A lot of the stories were just kind of okay for me. There was like one that I didn't like, but most of them were pretty good. And then there was one that really stood out, which was How to Deal with Inconvenient Guests by Marina Melo, translated from Portuguese by Natalia Moura, and this was so fun. This is basically a ghost haunting, and it's told from the ghost perspective, and she basically works to get rid of these unwanted human pests who keep infesting various ghosts' houses. And it's just like such a fun premise, and it's really cute, and it's got a fun twist in it as well, and it was just like such a joy to read. So again, this is like a real standout story from the rest of the collection being okay, but maybe not my favorite. I gave the collection as a whole 3.5 out of 5 stars. Next, I read Dancing After 10 by Vivian Chong, illustrated by Georgia Weber. This is a graphic memoir that I heard about from Jen at Jen Campbell, who I will link below, and it is about Chong's experience going on vacation only to end up in the hospital with 10, which is the syndrome where basically all of her skin fell off. It's a pretty scary one, and she was like in the burn unit for quite a while, and she had such intense scarring on her eyes that she lost her eyesight, and this is basically a graphic memoir all about that and about her recovery process and figuring out what she wanted to do with her life, given that she was a graphic designer and illustrator. So she was somebody who used her vision and no longer had it. And she had some surgery that kind of briefly improved her eyes, so she had a little bit of eyesight for a couple of weeks, and during that she started this graphic memoir, but the eyesight went away again, and she got Georgia Weber to work with her to finish this. And I think what's really cool about the illustrations in this is that you have the work that is done by Georgia Weber, but you also have some of those images that were done by Vivian Chong in that brief time that she had her eyesight back, as well as some images that are drawn by her when she has no eyesight, just expressing the emotions. And I think that experience and the kind of expression of what she went through with the artwork is really, really cool. However, I really struggled with this because there is so much kind of interpersonal drama that Vivian Chong has gone through. A lot of what happened because the vacation that she went on it with an ex-lover who she was then roommates with, who seems like the worst person. And basically, he gave her an unknown medication when she had had a headache, and that is what she had a reaction to that caused all of her skin to fall off. But then he abandoned her and in the hospital and went back home, didn't tell anybody what had happened to her, so nobody knew that she was like in the burn unit, lied to their work to say that she was still on vacation. And I mean, she continued to be in contact with this guy, and it's just like the drama between them was so intense throughout so much of this book. So it is an emotional journey for her, but that was a rough one for me to go along with her. So that's too much drama for me, but I do think that whole experience that she went through is a really kind of powerful one. So there's a lot that I liked about this, but a lot that also was just hard for me. So overall, I gave it 3.5 out of 5 stars. Then I read Oddball by Sarah Andersen, which is the most recent of her Sarah Scribbles kind of webcomic collection of comics, and it's just cute. This was just fun to read. Sarah Andersen draws this kind of version of herself focusing on her love of cute things, her obsessions with things, as well as her kind of antisocial nature and her anxiety and things like that. So I thought that this collection was definitely good. I laughed at a lot of them, but it didn't necessarily stand out quite as much as some of her previous collections. Just the comics in it didn't work as closely for me, but there were still quite a few that really, really spoke to me. Plus, I think her art style is really, really cute, and it's just a joy to read, and I had a fun time with this, so I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. And lastly, I read a picture book, The Moose of Ewenki by Gerelchimeg Blackcrane, illustrated by Ju, and translated from, I believe, Chinese by Helen Mixter. So this is a picture book that I heard about from Becca at ReadBecca, who I will link below, and it is basically a folk tale or an oral history about some people in Mongolia who are reindeer herders. And in particular, there was an old man, a hunter, who went out hunting and shot a moose only to discover to his horror that it was a mother moose and that there was a baby. And he didn't know what to do with the baby, but it followed him home. And so he ended up kind of adopting it and taking care of it. But a moose is a wild animal, and so it gets into quite a lot of trouble as it's growing up and getting bigger. I mean, it's a moose, it's huge, and this is like not the spot where moose normally hang out. So it's got some cute aspects to it. The illustration is really beautiful, very, very nice as a picture book, but I did just feel bad the whole time because it's like you should not have a wild animal as a pet. And so every time there would be issues with the moose getting into trouble, it's like, yeah, because you shouldn't have a wild animal as a pet. So I definitely had a hard time getting over that, but I thought that the illustrations were really cool, and it's just neat to read a translated picture book. I always like that. So I gave this one 3.5 out of 5 stars. Okay, so that is everything that I read this week. If you guys have read any of these, or if you have any suggestions for me based on some of these, especially for like translated SFF or picture books or anything like that, let me know. Any thoughts at all, just go ahead and leave me a comment down below.